Start recording this. Welcome, everybody. So as we wait, hopefully, for a couple of other people to join us that I'm hoping are going to be coming in this morning, I just want to go ahead and thank National Grand Bank for their sponsorship of the Marblehead Memories Project. They've been very generous, and we appreciate their support, and also the support of the Marblehead Cultural Council. They have also supported us this year for the Marblehead Memories Project, for which we are quite grateful. And upcoming, I just want to mention real quick that we do have a couple of programs that you still have plenty of time to sign up for. On the 18th of this month, now that we're in August, believe it or not, August 18th, we have our next book club. It is virtual at this time. Am I correct in saying that we're doing it virtually at this time? And we're reading The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. Thank you. I couldn't think of his first name. Colson Whitehead, which is, I will be honest, it's a hard read, but it is a great read. Won lots of awards. And it's a really good, it's going to be a really great conversation, and Amy's led really great conversations so far in all the books we've read. So you have time to read it. It's available, of course, at your library, of course, online as well. And there are digital versions and audiobook versions available from our local library system. So you can go online and get it that way if you prefer. So that's August 18th. That's a free activity. Just sign up and do the Zoom link for that. And then on the 20th of August, we're excited. We have Judy Anderson, who's, I believe, joined us here today. Hi, Judy. We'll be doing a talk about Marblehead's furniture makers. And as I think it's kind of an unknown story that we had so many gifted joiners and carpet.
Oh.
Lauren's having some technical Wi-Fi issues.
Wow.
So, yes. So Judy's talk is going to be on the 20th, Thursday, August 20th at 7 o'clock. It will be held via Zoom. We are really excited to hear more about the furniture makers in Marblehead's history. And Lauren is back, so you should take it over.
She's not unmuted though.
Yeah.
Unmute, and then I'm going to make Amy a co-host in case that happens again. We do not want that to happen again.
She was very smooth.
I bet you just took it right over. Thank you. So, okay. And somehow we're still live streaming on Facebook, even though I lost you all. All right, huzzah. Okay, great. Well, please join us on August 20th for that talk. And again, you can register online at our marbleheadmuseum.org and go to the upcoming programs page. We also have just one more thing to mention. Our tag and treasure sale, which we've been collecting amazing, people have been so generous donating really amazing items, a lot of vintage, a lot of antiques, collectibles, deck arts, and also just everyday items. We've been collecting, since April, maybe March or April. So we've got garages full of stuff, really great stuff. And we finally have a date for that. We're going to be holding that sale August 22nd. That's a Saturday. Start at 9, go to about 2 o'clock, and a rain date of the Sunday, which is August 23rd. And we are still accepting donations. And the great thing is that we will pick them up. So you don't have to bring them to us. We have a wonderful volunteer who's been coming to get them, and we will arrange a pickup that works for your schedule. So if you have anything that you're interested in donating to us, we ask that you contact us by going again to our website and going to the upcoming programs page, and you will see a spot for the tag and treasure sale. And there's a very brief, easy form to fill out just to let us know kind of what you have, so we have space in the truck for it. And then we'll contact you and get it picked up and get you a donation receipt. So again, if you have anything to donate, we'd love to take it off your hands. And then the actual event is the 22nd of August and starting at 9 a.m. unless it's raining. And then we'll go the 23rd, and that's all in the Lee Mansion Gardens. So we're hoping for a beautiful day, and I guarantee you lots of great stuff. So that's what's upcoming. Did I miss anything, Amy? Is that it? I think that's it. All right, great. So let's get started and hopefully we'll get a few more people. I know it's a beautiful day, so I appreciate you all spending a bit of your morning joining us for this. Every month we have a monthly meeting on a different theme. I kind of randomly chose the theme, and this month we were going to talk about restaurants and bars and watering holes and, you know, ice cream parlors and any place that you might go and gather, get a bite to eat, grab a drink. What are some of your favorite memories? Maybe it's a bartender that was, you know, a piece of work or a really great person, or a waitress or a waiter or an owner, or just what it was like to sit in some place and chat. Places that are still here, places that are long gone. I don't know if anybody's willing to be the person who kicks us off with maybe their favorite place to go grab a bite or a drink in Marblehead. Especially cool to talk about some of the places that aren't here anymore so that we can, you know, preserve that legacy. And if you're interested, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself. I know most people are muted. Oh, actually, did anybody hear that the community store is closing? Speaking of places, it's not quite the same, but I just heard that on Facebook last night. Is that true?
Oh boy.
I think maybe they were sold out, so maybe they won't be closing for good, but that was sad news. So hopefully they will be reopening soon in a different or some sort of capacity.
Oh, that's a sign of the times.
Does anyone
All
remember
right, Mara, I'm
Dill?
gonna throw you under the bus, if that's okay.
Does anyone remember the lobster pie at Dill's? My absolute favorite. Do you remember Dill's restaurant? It's
I
where
do.
Three Cod Tavern was.
Mm-hmm.
Great food.
About when was that?
Well, I don't know when it started, but I remember it in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I think it was still around.
I remember going there as a kid.
Yeah.
Definitely. It was
So is it
around
all-
for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it all sorts of, is it kind of like pub food, but they had the lobster pie? Was it a lobster pie?
It was a seafood restaurant. It was an excellent seafood restaurant. Probably the best in town.
A lot of
And
the
then
seafood.
I worked at the Landing the first month it opened. I was a waitress.
Oh.
I think it was my senior year, after my senior year in college. I was trying to make extra money. I can't remember the name of the owner, but he was a big kind of restaurateur from Boston. And Maddie's was doing so incredibly well. There were always lines all the way down State Street on weekend nights for Maddie's. It was a real scene. And so this guy, his name was Jack something, I can't remember his name, came up from Boston and started the Landing, and that became a big bar scene too. That was 1972.
I always assumed Robert always owned it, but no. So it was started by somebody else. Okay.
Oh yeah, he was really well known because he ran some of the biggest bars in Boston.
Mm.
No one remember, Dan, you don't remember his name? No.
No, I don't. I didn't. That was one place I didn't go to a lot, so I don't remember who the original one was.
He was a character.
So was Maddie's always the up and the down?
Yes.
The dining room upstairs and the, okay. Sorry. Sorry.
Actually, I wasn't allowed to go there, so I shouldn't say that. It was such a scene. I never went there. I didn't go there until I moved back 40 years later.
You have to explain what such a scene means.
Well, the real hip bar flies from Boston every Friday and Saturday night would come up, and as I said, the line would be down State Street. I mean, the police were always there. They were arresting people. It was a scene. My parents would not let me go there.
I think sailors came from far and wide. I remember you could meet people anywhere and they would know about Marblehead, and they would say they'd been to some bar in Marblehead, and then you'd say something like, oh, you must be talking about the sail off, Maddie's, and they would say, yeah, right. And then you'd say, oh, and did you have the big drinks? And then they would go, yeah, those drinks were amazing. And then you would say, did you throw up? And they'd all go, how did you know? That's the thing I remember.
I think, what was his name? Robert Parker wrote about Maddie's a bunch of times in the Spencer Mysteries.
Oh yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah. Yeah, so it's known globally. You have a Maddie's t-shirt, you know, in New Zealand, people know it. I mean, because sailors came here from, I mean, still do, from all parts of the world.
And again, that was the original owners, and I don't remember their names.
Yeah, it's
been reinvented is a little less, I don't know what the word is, scandalous.
mhm.
That's kind of amazing, actually. So, but it wouldn't have been like the way you make it sound if they're coming from all the way from Boston. It's not like it's a dive bar. It's kind of like just a place. It's like a fun place to go.
But people didn't come to eat. They came to drink.
Yeah, they were known for their drinks.
Yeah,
still
and then
are.
Heavy
I
core.
just remembered I hung out at the King's Rook, which was across the street. One of the first coffee houses when coffee houses became popular. And that was a real scene.
Oh
That
yeah.
was more the hippie scene.
That's where the jewelry store is that has that cool front
Yeah.
to the building. Tell me, I'm curious about that building. Can you sort of describe it a little bit? What was it like inside? Tables, chairs, bar, that type of thing for coffee?
Yeah, it was a bar. It was a restaurant, and you know, you could get hot chocolate or tea, or it was a coffee house. In the sense, you know, back when the Unitarian Church started with all the hippies and the acoustic guitar playing and the folk singing, the King's Rook was the other place that the folk singer types hung out.
Yeah,
That would-
I love the King's Rook. It was fabulous. Sorry, I don't have my video on today. I'm not presentable.
It's okay.
Oh,
What?
but
When would that have been?
it was fabulous. This would have been
60s,
let me-
70s.
no, for me it was later. It was probably because I moved up here in 80s, in yeah, like mid to late 80s.
Yeah, still
I
open.
think, and it was so beautiful inside. It was very, you walked in that corner, the door was kind of at a corner angle, and you walked in and everything was dark with what, you know, the beautiful wide floors, wide pine wood floors. If I recall, there was a fireplace that was always on and gorgeously cozy. It was very dark in there. They had a rack on one side of newspapers, you know, with the pole that you fold the newspapers over, and you could go over and get whatever newspaper you wanted to read off of that rack. I never understood how they made a business of it because, you know, as you were describing a second ago, you could go in there and have a hot chocolate and nothing else and sit there for 3 hours and everybody was just fine with that.
Yeah.
But they also served like light foods. Like I remember they had a delicious brie and, you know, crackers and breads and stuff that went with the brie. But it was a gem in this town, and it was really sad to see that place go.
I think we all miss the King's Rook, any of us who were living here way back.
Or even day trippers, because I wasn't living here at the time, but I used to bring friends and family up to Marblehead. I lived in Boston, and I brought friends and family. Anytime I had anybody visiting from out of state, we would always come to Marblehead for the day. And I remember the King's Rook, and at the time that we were, probably would have been late 80s or sometime during the 90s. I don't know when it closed, but it promoted the fact that it had a whole selection of international beers. So that's why it was a great stopping in place.
He was ahead of his time there.
Yes, it was.
Yes, yeah, and it was
Even the brie,
that was
brie
sort of was sort of one of the attractions of it was that it was you could get sort of, you could try any different kind of international beer. They offered this whole selection for people that were connoisseurs of beer. And I was up here one summer day. It was absolutely bloody hot. It was so really terribly hot to walk around town. And we stopped in there, and I don't drink beer, so I ended up ordering an iced chocolate, not a hot chocolate, but an iced chocolate. It was I think the best thing that I've ever had in my life. I sucked it down in about 3 seconds and immediately ordered another one. So I've never forgotten that. And I was always very sad to learn that the King's Rook was gone, because I so thoroughly enjoyed that iced chocolate on that really, really hot day.
And in the wintertime, you could get steamed milks, flavored steamed milks.
Yes.
And awesome soups, the best.
I loved it in the winter because of the vibe inside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like, it almost had a library vibe to it. It was an old time library vibe to it.
And the J.O.J. Frost murals all over the walls.
Yes.
That was a big loss also.
Oh, really?
And it had like 2 rooms or even 3, but the different rooms kind of had a little bit of a different vibe, not much, but when you first walked in, it was much more wide open, and then it seems like you walk down a little bit of a narrow hallway, and then the back room opened up, but the back room was a little more narrow, and had I always like to sit in the front part because it just felt more.
Was there an upstairs?
Not that I recall.
I don't think so.
The proprietors were the best. They were just the most awesome couple.
And they lived upstairs, so you could go upstairs.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Can I go back to Maddie's for a second to tell you, just to recount, I couldn't get my microphone to work. I'm really inept with technology. But this is a story that Betty Hunt has told. So it's not my story, it's Betty Hunt's story. And I don't know if it's true, so we have to find out when Maddie's started, because Betty told a story of a fellow coming and saying in town, visiting town, and he was German and had an accent, and he asked Betty somehow, maybe because she was 411 Betty when she was working at the Marblehead Historical Society, he asked her if there was a restaurant called Maddie's. And she said, yes, there is. And she told him where it was. And she said, have you been there before? Or he said, I've been, I was there a long time ago, and I can't remember where it was. So she said, oh, when were you here? And he said, during World War II.
Wow.
So the implication was that he had been a German submariner and came in off of the submarine. So I don't know if that's true. Betty told the story, so there you go. And we'd have to find out when Maddie started. I'd love to know if that's true.
Oh.
I'll have to check in with her. That would be gutsy to come on and just
I've
have
never
a
asked
drink.
Betty. I don't know why I've never asked her, but anyway.
Have you guys done one of
I
these?
throw that out.
Have you guys done one of these with Betty? It'd be great just to have a whole day with Betty here.
Yes, I have tried to get. It could be a week. It could be a month. She is wonderful, but does not want to be in front of a computer as much as I have tried it to get her on Zoom.
She can do what a couple of us are doing. You don't have to be in front of it.
That's true. Oh, she's a ham. I don't think she would mind being seen. I think it's more that she just is so overwhelmed by it. But one of these days when I can be close to her and not have to worry about, any sort of infection, we'll just figure out a way I'll park her in front of the screen and you can all ask questions. I'll figure it out.
I'd love
That would be fantastic.
It would be amazing. She is an amazing woman.
I have a very off-topic question, because I've been obsessing. I want to call Betty and ask her this question. I've been obsessing about Burial Hill lately, and I've been reading a little bit about it. And then I keep going up. Do any of you guys know much about Burial Hill? Because I'm looking for one particular stone that I read about that it's a rock that has the name Alice Negro on it. And it was
Agnes.
The
Agnes.
Agnes stone, yes.
So is
It's
that stone gone? Did it get stolen?
So the original, this is actually funny because we've been working with the racial justice team about redoing the stone, in fact, because the
Fabulous.
original stone actually, believe it or not, made it into the 1970s. And then there was a series of thefts of stones, not just hers, but a whole bunch of them, supposedly. And I actually need to go back into the Messenger articles and read about it. But hers was one that disappeared. And so it was replaced at one point by just a kind of a basic plaque. But we just recently found a picture in our archive of the original stone. And it's amazing because it has all the skull head and the iconography, and it has her age and her death date.
Really?
And the fact that she was a servant to the Russell family. So
It's posted on our Facebook page too.
oh yeah, right. So it's actually, if you want to see it, go right.
It's on Marblehead Facebook page or
Marblehead Museum's Facebook page. I'll try to pull it up real quick if I can. I don't know if I have it on my computer.
Sorry to take us off topic, but
No, that's okay. So it's near the it was originally in the Russell family area, which I believe is near, I'm trying to remember if anybody knows, chime in.
I do because I've been up there.
Hartford.
I've looked at everything. I'm searching for Agnes, right? Was that right?
Agnes.
Yes. So it's over, like if you're up by the two monuments up on
Yes.
top, if you go, let's see, if you're facing Red's Pond up there,
Okay.
it would be the Russell families behind you, in that grouping behind you, if I'm making any sense here.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And I'm gonna try to share my
Amy,
screen if I can.
The Facebook posting is from what date?
It's actually, so we just posted it on Wednesday. It's the call to action to see if anybody
Oh, I see it. Yep.
knows of any, yeah.
Oh, spectacular.
Yeah, so actually good timing on the one
Yeah,
hand.
that's so funny. I'm trying to share. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a good, I have better photos actually. This is not one of the best ones, but
My gosh.
isn't it great?
Spectacular.
So Agnes Negro, servant, it's something, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head because I can't really read it. Servant of Samuel Russell, aged whatever she was. She passed away in 1718, but it's amazing. So the racial justice team is working to remake that, but it's expensive, to have somebody carve something like that nowadays is very expensive. So they're going to be fundraising starting very soon. So
Okay, well, keep my name and I'll leave my information with you. I'd certainly get involved in that if
please
I can.
do. That'd be great. Let me know.
Spectacular. That is really wonderful. And and I do PR for work. I see that as a national story too. I could see that.
Yes, I agree.
That would be amazing.
That would be great.
Or an ABC story. I would be more than happy to chime in there.
Wow, thank you. That's awesome.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask, I know we went back to Maddie's for Betty's fun story, which I'm definitely going to have to find out what the real.
Okay, so I just
real.
I just went across the street and asked Betty.
And you brought your.
She's weeding. Well, I'm on the iPhone because I was doing. See, can you see Betty out there?
Oh my gosh.
No, but hi Betty, I miss you.
Anyway, she's weeding and it's hot, so she's trying to weed.
There was a recent write-up about Maddie's. I don't know if it was the Reporter or what it was in, but my husband, who's from Iowa, found it online, and it does tell, it does tell the history, the owner, when he died, the wife kept it going.
Okay, the owner was Maddie Putnam, Cindy Rocket's dad, and her mom used to run it, and her mom just recently passed away. So carry on, Susan.
That must have been in her obituary or something, yeah, that he read.
Anyway, Betty didn't remember. She suggested calling Don Dolliver. I mean, I asked her when it started, when the restaurant started, and I told her that I told her story. And I told her that we all thought she could be on for a week or maybe a month. And she laughed.
Fabulous.
But at any rate, so she suggested calling Don Dolliver or emailing Don Dolliver. He might remember, or getting in touch with Cindy Rocket, because she might remember.
That's fabulous. Did she remember the German story?
She said, "Oh, yeah, I remember that vaguely."
Oh, vaguely. Well, maybe it was in the paper. I mean, that's pretty.
No, she did. I think it was so long ago. I think,
Okay.
you know, she's got to pull it up on the Rolodex, and there's a lot on her Rolodex.
And
I have a hard time with 20th century names because I have so many 18th century names in my head, at 17th and 18th, and then I stumble over people in the present, and it's so embarrassing. But I can relate to her. You can't remember everything.
You know, there was an article years ago, I think when the new owners of Maddie's came in, there was an article about it in the New York Times.
Oh.
So I'm sure if we went in and asked them, asked them now, they probably even have that up in Maddie's someplace. But we should share it either somehow amongst ourselves once we find it. But it was a great article about Maddie's. I was blown away to find it in the New York Times. It seems like it coincided with when they bought it, because it was at a time that Maddie's seemed like it was going away. And then that couple, either from New York or something, I met her once when they first bought it. But that couple, I don't know, somehow they got some press that they decided to take a chance and buy Maddie's and try to have a do-over.
Can't believe that they got into the New York Times.
Yeah.
Maybe Maddie's is the most famous spot in Marblehead. I don't know.
Yeah. It was a great, colorful piece. It was nice.
Okay.
Well, then the sea salt people, the couple who owned sea salt, had Jack Tar. Then they went to Saratoga Springs. They closed Jack Tar, sold it, went to Saratoga Springs, opened a restaurant there. It didn't really fly because Saratoga is a whole different vibe. And so they came back. So Marblehead is the place to be, clearly. But, you know, for some of the early restaurants, Dan Dixie could do a good presentation on that.
There you go, Dan.
Oh.
When's that going to be?
I came to listen.
I live in the Adams house, so I want to hear some stories about the Adams house.
Yes, please. Does anybody have any stories about the Adams house? Because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there was two at one time. There was where you probably live, right? And then there was one closer to Fort Sewell. I'll try to bring up the pictures I have, but if anybody has any memories of that.
I actually just posted the art. There was wrinkles.
Got a whole postcard collection of that I've just collected over the years of Adams House postcards. And it does look, I don't know the full history, but it does appear that there were a couple different locations. That one time it was like a little shack, you know, and then it became this building where it was sort of a destination, not only local place, but tourist place.
There is an advertisement from the 1920 Messenger, and it listed 2 locations for the Adams house. I just posted it to our Instagram page yesterday as a reminder for today's meeting. So if you look at the Instagram page, it actually lists 2 different locations.
Can you remind me, is this the Instagram page for
The Marblehead Museum.
Okay, yeah. Fabulous.
Yeah.
And then if we do a follow-up on this at all, I can invite a friend of a friend in town. I can't even remember his name, the friend of the friend's name, but I can find out easily. His family recalls a lot about the Adams house because I know he had a brother who worked there. And so they sort of, it's been years since I've gotten together with the brother, but he knew a ton of information about the Adams house as a restaurant. And so it'd be really fun. I'm sure I could get, I don't know if I might be able to get them both to come on, but they had a ton of information on it.
Well, that would be fabulous. Yeah, this, I don't know if you can see this. I think I'm screen sharing. This is one of the postcards we have in our collection. And then as you mentioned, there's a sort of smaller shack. We have a lot of pictures of it. I can try to pull one up, but I don't know too much about it. So, and if anybody remembers anything about it when it went out of business, owners, anything like that, that would be fabulous information. Or if you in fact visited.
I did find somewhere I have some information on, because I got real curious about who Adams was. And so I went down that rabbit hole one night, and I honestly don't even remember where I went or where I found it, but I did. I did find some information about who Adams was at the time, so I'll try to pull some of that up. I don't even really remember much of it, but
What happened to it? Did it burn down or did they tear it down?
I mean, it's now the condos, so I think all the it's the condo building next to the Barnacle.
Right, but I was wondering if the original building burned down or was it just torn down?
I think, I don't know, at some point they turned them into apartments. They turned the building into apartments first, and I don't know if something had happened to the restaurant that then made them, start over, or if it just went out of business and then they decided to turn it into apartments. But I know a couple of people that I can find out.
So the building now is part of the original building, is what you're saying?
Yeah, in fact, I think where all of our, we have all of our lockers and our storage areas down in the cellar. And I do recall, I don't remember any of the details because it was 30 years ago, this guy came by and was talking to me about it. But he talked about what that basement area was when it was the restaurant. And so I think the foundation and everything is still the same.
Oh, great. That would be fabulous information. I apologize for this picture not being very good. It has a watermark through it as well. Not being at the museum, I can't pull up the original. But I think this is another version of the Adams house.
I have a lot of pictures. I don't have a lot of information, and I don't really remember the place, but I do have pictures of the Adams house extension, which was on that, I don't know if that's going up to the fort on the right-hand side. So I do have a picture when there was, I guess it was the overflow because the small place down on Front Street would get too full. So they had the extension built in, and then I have several pictures of the interior with I think the original owners and a couple of names, a couple of people that worked there, and Mr. Adams. I don't remember. I don't have that stuff with me, so to look at it. But I do have a lot of photos, and I think it originally might even. I have one where I think it was Adams and Stone was on the sign. And
yeah, I do remember there were two players, and I can't remember the details of that. I didn't remember if it was Adams and his brother or Adams and a partner.
Yeah, and I don't know who that Stone was, but there was. I do have one. I think that's I don't know, 1890 or a pretty early photo I have of the building. There was a Moxie sign on the front, and there was unidentified people, one or two people standing in front of it, but you could read the sign, and it was Adams and Stone, or Stone and Adams at that time.
That's fabulous.
But if you're talking about eateries or watering holes going back that far, the most famous one in the entire country in Marblehead was the Focusol at the Rockmere.
Yes.
And I think you have menus I think the museum has menus, and I mean that was really where people and famous people from all over the country would come, and they'd spend back in the days when you'd spend an entire summer there, people from New York or and I remember, I mean, that was still around till the early 60s.
What was the rest of the restaurant or bar called again?
The Rockmere Hotel, which was on the entire, took up the entire peninsula where Glover Landing is now. It was a massive summer hotel, and it had a restaurant, a bar place called the Focusol.
Focusol, yeah.
Focusol.
Like on a boat.
Like on a boat, yeah.
Oh, got it.
And that was famous all over the country, and presidents came there, and but you can get all that from Mike Smith, whose mother was a Brackett, and she and her family owned it. So
it was huge. I'll pull up a picture.
That might be a good idea to do an oral history with Mike.
Oh, I've been trying to get him to do that for years. Lauren, have you had any success?
No success. He is working, because I think he's been working for years on a book about the Rockmere Hotel. But yeah, I don't know that it's come.
For years.
I know. Well, you said it, not me.
He's in town right now, but I don't know if he went back today or just his wife went back.
No. This is a picture of the Rockmere during Hurricane Carol in the 30s. So, but just to give you a sense of the scope of it, it's an impressive institution.
Yeah, 100 rooms they had.
Wow.
Wow.
Wasn't Hurricane Carol in 54?
Oh, sorry, 54. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Apologies.
Because the funny story about that, I grew up in Indianapolis. My mom's name's Carol. My mom always loved Marblehead. She's the one that turned me on to Marblehead. Her name's Carol. She had my brother on August 31st of 1954, which was when Hurricane Carol hit Marblehead. Big day. So I always tell my mom Hurricane Carol came through Marblehead the day she had my brother. So I remember that date well.
Yes.
Kimberly, can I ask Kimberly a question? Do you
Yes.
live in the house that's across the street from the Adams House apartment buildings?
No,
and
I have 2 condos within the Adams House.
Oh, within the Adams House. Okay. Because
Yes.
there's the building across the street from there that has the big picture windows, and Dan Dixie would probably know this for sure. I think, Lauren, you had a picture of one of those postcards, I think is that building. And I wondered if that was, what restaurant that was.
I don't know.
Lauren, I think it's a brown building with the very large windows. It has big picture windows. It's on the corner of Franklin Street at Front Street.
Okay.
Yeah, I know the house you're talking about, and years ago before they fixed it up, it was kind of a yellow, tattered, rundown house for years.
But I think it always had those big picture windows, at least for decades, back to the turn of the century. And I'm never clear if that was part of the Adams House or wasn't.
I don't think it was, but I still am a little confused, because I have so many postcards, and it's interesting that last one of the Adams House you showed I'd never seen before, and I thought I had seen them all. But I still
the big one, the later one. Yeah.
Confused. I mean, it feels like there were 3 or 4 locations.
Right.
And then
so Lauren,
when one of you said there was an ad, you have an ad, or you posted an ad yesterday that had 2 locations. Did it have the addresses or did it suggest the 2 locations?
Or was it labeled, that postcard, was it labeled saying Adams House?
I think I can share it or something.
This was on Instagram.
It says while you're grabbing it, I'll just say it says 1 at Fort Beach and 1 at entrance to Fort Sewell. So I can try to pull up.
Right.
Okay, so that was what's now the apartment building, the house that has 2 units, I think.
Yeah, the house just before you get into Fort Sewell on the right is where the Adams House extension was.
Right.
So,
that was the extension. Okay.
Yeah, so that's when they had the 2 locations. It was kind of, I think they started using that as an overflow because the original one on Front Street was kind of small.
So that's
the one right on the rocks at the entrance of Fort Sewell?
Yes, as you're coming up that little driveway with the water on your right, that first place on the right, the house that's there, it was right there.
So is that the picture we're looking at right now?
No, that's the front. That's where the apartment building is now. The original, see to the right of that picture where the flag is, that little building. That's where on the right hand side there of the Adams House. That's about the location of the original small building that was, about the size of that building that's shown there.
Okay, that's what I thought that was that one.
Yeah, and then when they expanded into what you can see there, the stucco or stone building that it was.
And the little black thing on the end is like barely above the water. This the little black extension.
Yeah, and that's where the original building, the original small little restaurant where they started. And then the Ocean House, Snow had a place on the left-hand side. It's not shown in this picture where the barnacle is now. That was Joseph Snow, and then his son, I think, took it.
Is that it?
That's the barnacle.
That's the barnacle. The one that was there in these pictures. I know, Lauren, you have pictures. I know you have a glass negative of Snow standing in the doorway.
Okay.
That building was moved onto Selman Street as a house. It's not even recognizable now because of the additions. But when years ago, 30 years ago, you could see the shape of the building and that house. But that building that Snow's was in is on Selman Street as a house now.
Wait, Dan, can you say that again? So you're saying that building that was the Barnacle?
No, before the Barnacle, the building that was there before the Barnacle, which was, I think it was, the official name was the Ocean House. It was Joseph Snow, I think
Okay.
ran it. That building there, which was kind of an odd shaped building, that's the one that was moved. I have all pictures. I don't have any of the stuff with me. I'm on vacation this summer, so I don't have my pictures. But and Lauren, I know there's postcards too. There's plenty of postcards of that.
Okay.
Of the Ocean House.
And is the black house to the right of it in the photo the same? There's a black house there now in about the same location. Is that must be the original house?
I always wonder if it's the same foundation too. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly the same location. So Dan, I'm still obsessed with what you just said. So the building that was the Ocean House was then moved to a different street?
It was moved on to Selman Street and used as a house. And it's still there, but I don't think you can, I can later get out and take another look, but years ago, you could identify it by the shape, but there's been work done on it, and I can't even tell walking down there now which house it was, years ago.
Yeah, they got a big porch and the whole facade was changed.
Yeah, so the whole shape of it changed, but when it was first moved in for years, it looked just like when it was the restaurant. It was very identifiable because of the shape of the building up here.
Is this Snow's that you're referring to?
No,
that's oilcloth. That's oilcloth. Never mind. That's
yeah.
different. I'm trying to find it real quick in our online collection to see if I can.
And was
We just lost you. Sorry.
Was the Ocean House a bar or a restaurant, or what was it?
It was a restaurant. There's and again, I know, Lauren, you have a glass negative, and there's a chalkboard with the menu and the prices on front. I had scanned that years ago, so I kind of zoomed in. You can see the prices, but they had fish dinners and all that. I don't think there's any pictures of the interior around, but it was a little seafood restaurant.
Nobody was taking pictures of interiors. It's so frustrating, and especially when I was at the Lee Mansion, to not have a single photograph of the interior of the Marblehead Bank for obvious security reasons is probably why they did that. But with Lichman living or his office studio right next door, there's no pictures of the bank, and there are very few pictures of interior of restaurants. I think there's an interior of the Foxhole.
Yes, there's
one somewhere.
Yeah, and there are some of the Adams House, which is odd.
Oh, okay.
I think there's at least 3 different ones back to 1890, 1900. I think the dates
That's
on them.
exciting.
I think it was
The
too
age
hard.
of interior photography was.
The lighting for the photographers. You needed to use the window. It's very tough to get the lighting right, so they didn't want to bother.
What's a good lesson for now? We're probably doing the same thing and don't have interior pictures of any of those now, too.
Oh my gosh, every time a house goes up went up for sale for the past 25 years that I've lived here, every time a house went up for sale, I would try and take pictures when the furniture was out and before the new furniture goes in, and I have boxes and boxes of slides. Someday there'll be the historical societies of interiors.
So here's that, what Amy mentioned. Can you say that, the 2 restaurants? It's just an ad from the newspaper.
Yeah, it was August 6th, 1920, I think it was.
Love it.
Yeah, the building is very Art Deco. I'm sorry it changed. The white building looks very Art Deco from the 20s.
That was the time.
Has anybody heard of the Atlantic restaurant? Because we do have one interior that is in our collection that people say is from the Atlantic, and I'll try to bring it up here while
Wasn't the Atlantic over by where right next to where Shuby's is?
Oh,
that would make sense, huh?
There was I guess it would make sense too. But there was a house that sat up. You know where they have the tent right now for Shuby's? There was a house. I don't know if that house.
Oh, that was Jacob Marley's or something.
Well,
it was an Irish restaurant.
It was a couple different things, but I think it was
Was it Michael's house?
At one point.
Michael's.
Also Michael's,
Yeah,
yes.
that was
Also
Michael's house.
But wasn't there a restaurant much further up on Atlantic toward Ocean? like on the near Atlantic and Ocean?
Yeah, it was Tar and Feather. The Tar and
Tar
Feather.
and Feather. Okay.
Oh, that would have been an awesome name. Oh gosh.
No kidding.
Oh.
And where was the Tar and Feather?
On Washington Street, on the corner of Washington and Atlantic.
Which
Oh,
one? Which corner?
Washington.
Right where the Five Compass Deli is or was, and it's right next to where the carousel used to be.
Does
I
anybody
think
know
it's
which?
where the Barrelman, where
Oh,
the
the
Barrelman is
okay.
now. I think
Yeah.
it was there. I know it was Nello's. That was Nello's at one time years ago.
Bart O'Connor used to own it, and then Dan Riley and they took it over and named it the what was it called? Used to be called the Bart O'Connor owned it initially, and then he sold it to Danny Leahy and
Three men.
Jay McGuire and
Was it Jake Cassidy's at one time
Yeah.
too?
Jake Cassidy.
then it became Jake Cassidy, but it used to be the Tar and Feather. Then it
Yeah.
became Jake Cassidy's, and it was that for a long time. And then
Whatever it is now.
I'm not sure what it is now.
Well,
The
and it was a Mexican restaurant for a short time too.
No, that was
That's where the carousel was. The
that was
Mexican.
La Bamba.
That's
No,
the store.
the one I'm
What
thinking
was the carousel?
An interior design
Oh.
furniture store.
And that was at 261 Washington Street. And that was owned previously by Mildred Crowley, who owned the 76 restaurant before the police captain's brother, Gene Gerard, owned it then.
Yeah. So the carousel we owned. My husband and I.
Oh.
The Pain. Hi, Judy. The Pain.
Hey, hi.
Hi.
You know what we need here? So now we need Bill Conley, who did that great map of all the 23 whatever gas stations that had been in Marblehead. We'll need to get Bill to do all the different restaurants over in
That is
Marblehead.
true.
Oh, I want to see the gas station one too.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
the Historical Commission has that online.
Okay, speaking of gas stations, I was delighted as I was getting ready to throw out what I thought was junk mail, and I looked at that little 01945 magazine that I was literally throwing away, and then I've been so curious as to what restaurant or fish shop was going in where that old gas station was, right at, I don't know even what.
Yeah, where the flower shop is, across from the
Exactly.
flower.
And then
Yeah.
there's a great article in that magazine about what's going in there. And I was just thrilled to death to read about it. Do you guys know what that is?
Yeah, it's a famous Boston, I can't think of his name, of course, but a
Jay
famous
Santos.
Boston chef. Yes, thank you.
And
Right.
Jay Santos.
Yes. And
Now I can't remember what the name of it is going to be. Blue,
It's
blue
called-
something.
I think it's B&B
Fish.
fish market,
B&B
something
fish.
like that.
No, fish. Just plain fish.
Fish. Okay, and I think B&B, one of his restaurants in Boston is either Buttermilk and something else with a B. So I think-
Biscuits. Buttermilk and biscuits.
Yes, so I think that's where the B&B comes from.
Okay.
But it seems terrific, and the menu looks great, and it looks like they're doing a great deal of takeout. So a lot of the focus is takeout, which I think is terrific for that location, as long as
And
people,
for now.
for now, and as long as people can find parking.
That'll be the key.
Well, and if it's a drive-by parking, that's a good thing. Just keep
Right. Right, but it
prettier.
looks adorable. I think they're
Yeah.
doing a beautiful job. I saw the stone or the little cobblestones that went in on the porch recently, and it just looks really pretty.
It looks much better.
Lauren, I found a picture of the
Oh,
Ocean
yeah?
House. I have it. I don't know if you.
You should be able to share
All
if you
right.
want to.
I'll try.
You want to try it?
Let's see.
This is
Everybody see that?
Snow's Ocean House? Yeah.
Do you
cool.
see
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, this one over here. That's the one that was moved on to Selman Street. and was a house and still is a house, but you just can't recognize it. But you used to be able to, by this top piece, recognize it. And that's the.
So Dan, where was that?
This is where
the barnacle was?
This is where the barnacle is now. And
Okay.
because this is the Adams house, one of their many buildings to the side of it there.
So was the Ocean House in business at the same time the Adams House was in business?
Yes. Yeah, they were for a period of time, both there at the same time.
So looking at the clothes, it's about 1910, Lauren, you think? Or Dan?
Yeah.
I think it is. And Lauren, I think you actually have, I think, the glass negative of this one, because that's that sign. This postcard was done from, I think, a Richmond
Where is
negative.
Ocean House again?
This is where the barnacle is today.
Oh, the Ocean House was there?
That looks about turn of the century, right? 1910 maybe. So probably, I mean, I think there were a lot of people coming to visit then, right? The trolleys coming through.
Oh, absolutely.
And you have
Trolley
the
went right
people
by
coming
there.
in.
Yeah.
So right, it went right by there. In fact, you're right. So
yeah, this is because this in later this is J.F. Snow, and it said the second, and I can't tell from this if that's a 2 there. It would help to date it, because originally it was J.F. Snow, and then his son took it, and they put the second next to the sign, but I can't see if that's what
It almost looks like there wasn't enough room for the Ocean House, because the water comes in there where the barnacle is.
And talk a little bit about the train and the trolley. So did the train come up and stop by where National Grand Bank is, and then people caught was the trolley on rails that then stopped in front of the Adams House, or what?
The trolley came all the way from Salem, had a stop in front of the train depot, which ended at where the National Grand Bank is, and the tracks went all the way down to Selman Street. I mean, all the way down Franklin Street. I'm not sure exactly where it ended there.
Well, I think that was the turnaround there. That went down from the National Grand Bank, where the 4 different train stations were, down Pleasant Street, took a left onto Washington Street. The tracks paralleled each other, each direction.
Yeah.
Continued down to Selman, down Franklin, down Selman, around to the left, and back up Franklin, I think, is how it turned around.
Yeah, you can see it on the maps from about like 1880. You can see all the, or 1890. You can see the turnaround and all of that. It's really cool.
So
it's hard to imagine.
So the turnaround is what these streets are right now?
Yeah, and it's what the bus does.
It's what?
The bus can't make that turn. I can imagine how a trolley did.
Oh, I know. Okay.
Maybe they were shorter. I guess they were a little shorter.
Yeah, they probably were.
So one other thing about that Ocean House picture, note the corner entrance, and just keeping in mind the Lafayette House, the so-called Lafayette House, which is the first mansion. And if you look in Marblehead, there are probably a dozen corner entrances that you can point to. It's just, it's a thing that is done everywhere,
right?
And always has been.
Well,
go
and
back
even
to the 1400s, 1500s, the 1500s and 1600s, you can see houses, buildings in Europe with that. So it's
and even that King's Rook that I mentioned before, had that corner entrance. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about tea rooms. Well, if we're sticking to the subject of eateries, because they were before my time. I know there was a bakery named Brown's or something, but maybe some of you heard or from your parents or remembered. I remember my mother talking about a tea room she used to go to, and I came across a picture or a postcard of it a couple of years ago, and it was in a beautiful, beautiful white building, like a ladies' tea room. I want to say it was on Gregory Street or somewhere down around there. Does that ring any bells with anybody? No. Well, there were tea rooms.
I think there was a tea room. I would love to know about that one on Gregory Street. So again, we need Betty Hunt here.
I'm not sure it's. I can just picture it from the photo, and I'm trying to remember where it was, but it was somewhere around there. But
there was one at the top of Darling Street,
maybe.
Where the Seagull ended up being, and that was Lillibridge's, which was a restaurant, but it might have been more like a tea room. And Lillibridge's, of course, was J.O.J. Frost's wife's father ran that restaurant, but But I think there was, after that, I think there was a tea room there, but I can't swear to that.
Yeah, I think there was one on Front Street too, at the other end of Darling Street on the corner there. It might have been the Seahorse or.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. That could be.
Yeah, and I think that made that. I think that had,
up at Washington, and the Seahorse down at the
yeah.
bottom of Darling Street.
And then I think there was the Sunbeam Tea Room, which I think was up near Venice Square. It might have even been over the line. It might have been in Salem. I've seen pictures of that.
No, this was in a very elegant house. I remember it must have been before my, I mean, it must have continued into the 20s, 30s, or 40s if my mother went there, but I don't, I seem to remember a little bit of it when I was a very little girl, so it must have still existed in the 50s. Well, anyway, I just know there were ladies' tea rooms all around town.
There was a McDonald's restaurant. You can make money on bets saying that there was a McDonald's restaurant in Marblehead one time.
Really?
Really?
Wow.
Really?
That's surprising.
Where was that?
The corner of Smith and Pleasant Street.
Really?
I have a
Oh,
picture
wow.
of it.
Oh.
Okay, should I share the
Do
screen?
you have a picture? Yeah, please.
Yeah, let's see.
What?
How long did it last there?
I don't know. Let's see. This one down here.
Oh, not the McDonald's.
Oh,
You totally had me on that one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
McDonald's
How would you
restaurant.
know?
Where was that? Where was
This is
that?
the corner of Smith Street
Yeah.
and Pleasant, right
I
on
wonder if
at
that's
that
what
real
I'm-
bad is. I think there's a house that probably still looks similar to that, but
That
Wait,
might be
Smith
what I'm
Street?
thinking
Oh,
of.
no kidding. It's the one where the motorcycle sign is? No.
Or the
No,
post-
never mind.
the
No,
street-
this is the
No,
house
further
that they
down.
decorated Halloween. This house is wonderfully decorated at Halloween. Lots of orange lights. So we can all find it in October.
Well played, Dan.
All right.
Fell right into that.
Well, it's funny though, because in Freeport, Maine, they actually turned an 1850 historic house. The interior is an McDonald's.
Can
Like
you
in,
say that again?
so in Freeport, Maine, there's an 1850 historic house that McDonald's wanted to turn into an actual McDonald's, and the town wouldn't let them. So they were to turn the interior into a McDonald's, but from the exterior, it looks like that 1850 historic house.
Wow.
So
Can I share something real quick? I'm just curious if this is the one I mentioned earlier. I had it shared. If anybody recognizes this, this is the one that maybe is the interior of the Atlantic.
I think it is.
Does that ring a bell? Does that? I know
Yes.
this is earlier than most people probably would remember.
Yeah,
It
that's
looks
where
like-
Michael's house was.
Where whose?
Like Michael's house restaurant.
Yes, Michael's house,
Oh.
exactly. Because that's the same bar. That's where
Yeah,
the
right
bar
next to
was.
the old Texaco gas station.
Oh, yeah.
That's the
Okay.
bar on the left, and they used to have entertainment in the back there where that camelback sofa is. I think it's a camelback sofa.
Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. That's awesome.
So is Michael's house the one that was torn down then?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sweeney's, yeah.
Sweeney's. That's what the Irish restaurant was. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Michael's house
That
was Sweeney. Was that torn down?
I
it
think.
was torn down. That's actually a first period house. It was about 1710 or teens. So really sad that it was torn down.
Yeah, it's just a parking lot. That's just a parking lot now, right? Across
Yeah,
the
Scooby's parking lot.
Scooby's, yeah.
Okay, that's that one. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I didn't.
It was
get that the
Michael's
first
house.
time.
It was Michael's house for a long time, but then all of a sudden it was so many different things. I can't even remember what it was. Every time you turned around, it was a new restaurant, a new name.
Sweeney's restaurant.
Sweeney's, yeah.
Yeah, and he owned a thing in Boston, an Irish restaurant down by Scully's. Well, I don't know where. He owned two restaurants, one in Boston, but he was from Marblehead, Sweeney.
Phil
And-
Sweeney.
Yeah.
I think his first name was Phil.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't remember. Nice guy. I used to have coffee with him a lot.
So between Sweeney's, if you go catty corner to where the bistro is, or was until recently, behind there was a restaurant that started with an M, and now it's an office building. And I think there was another one someplace else. But does anyone remember what that one was?
Are you talking where Brown's was? Brown's restaurant or bakery was in the front. Then they moved it to the back of the lot for a short period of time. It was Sneakers at one time, and Jacob Marley's was there at one time.
Jacob Marley's, yeah. So it was Sneakers before that.
I don't know if Sneakers was first or Jacob Marley. Jacob Marley's started on Atlantic Ave next to the golf station.
Yes.
Romano's restaurant started there for the
Okay.
pizzas and
Romano's.
Italian food.
Yes.
And then
Slimmers was on Darling Street, and then it moved up to the on Pleasant Street to the second floor of the
Plaza.
Ronaldo's. I'm talking Romano's was on Atlantic Avenue, and then it was and then Jacob Marley's was there before. It was a pretty small spot.
right on the
they
street
moved.
next to the Marblehead Pizza and
Yeah.
the real estate company.
Jacob Marley's was the one, but that was the last restaurant it was before it closed. So Sneakers must have been before then. And Jacob Marley's had a giant fish tank. I used to take my sons there for dinner once in a while.
I love that second Jacob Marley's. That was a great little spot.
Is that the one owned by Flinny?
No.
Jacob Marley's?
No.
Where was Jacob?
Don't know.
No, I don't think he owned that, but Flinny's place went into where Jacob Marley's had moved out of on Atlantic, and that's why.
Now, the place that was Michael's house, what was that last before it got torn down?
Sweeney's. Right?
Sweeney's.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Lauren, you have a picture in the margin that's, I think, the third postcard picture down, the postcard image. That's a brown building. It's a restaurant with big windows. Can you show that?
This one? Or
No.
no. This
That
one. The
Correct.
log cabin.
Right. So that's the one that's at the bottom of Franklin Street,
Selman.
across from, yes, Selman. Thank you.
Yeah, Selman and Circle Street on the corner.
That's
Yeah, so
Lovis
Selman
Cove.
and the Adams house is across from it. One thing I think that's really interesting is the big windows and the dirt road. And I'm wondering if you can see any trolley tracks in that photo.
And where is it again? Where is this?
Bottom of Selman Street. It looks very similar, except it's a 2-story house now. And they've raised it up, or at some point it was raised up, so a garage is underneath it. And it's across from the Adams house.
Circle Street comes out like where the where the flag is over on Circle Street side.
I don't
Right.
see trolley tracks in this.
Okay, I'm using a phone, so I can't quite see.
Yeah, my computer is acting up. Otherwise, I'd try to pull up that that map that has.
I know
the-
there's some photos that actually you can see the trolley tracks.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, there's a
you've
lot
got-
of Franklin Street. There's quite a few photos of that show them coming down, but
Yeah.
but I've never seen anything about the turnaround or what I assumed that they just backed out and went to wherever.
Betty Hunt used to talk. I'll have to ask Betty. She used to tell me about some sort of turnaround. So, but you're right. I mean, trolleys, you just go the other end of the car and you start backing.
But you would think it would be
Yeah.
easier for them to just do that loop like the bus does and go back up the other side and not have to do the backing up business.
Well, yeah, because they went on Washington too. Because
right. And
not
they were
just-
double tracks on Washington, and I assume they were double tracks on Franklin, but don't know. So maybe some of those old photographs would tell us
I
that.
thought the
I think it
turnaround.
was.
I thought the turnaround was across the street from the Adams house. You know, there's a parking lot
yeah,
there.
that's what she said. That's
Yeah.
right where that parking
like-
lot is, and
like
then they
you-
went.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because there's only a single track on Franklin.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dan. All right.
So when
And
they,
with this log cabin picture, what is there right now? I'm still
that's it. The house is
It's a
there,
house.
right?
House.
2-story house with a garage underneath.
Correct. Yeah.
That's from where
That's
Gene
what it is, yeah.
used to live.
So this
So-
was a log cabin, turn of the century, and I wonder how long that persisted.
Don't know.
Don't know. Maybe World War I took out a lot of these restaurants, these early ones.
When people stopped coming to visit maybe as much. What about, well, this, I hate to keep going back to this, but it's kind of fast, the early Barnacle. I mean, these people look like what, 50s, maybe? Well, based on their clothing?
Or 40s.
40s, maybe? It's hard to see.
I think this is 50s or even early 60s because I have this postcard too, and I had posted it, and somebody told me who the people on the bikes were.
Oh, wow.
I think one of them was somebody I went to school with, so I'm like, oh, it can't be that old.
So
might be worth doing an oral history with Jay Sahagan.
Who's that? Tell me
The
who
guy
that
who
is.
owns it now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just curious because it's such a different look to it. It's almost like a takeout kind of.
Yeah, you can't tell if there was any tables inside. It looks like
No.
just the seating out there, and I don't know if that little strip where somebody's in the window, if there was tables there or not.
Yeah, it's really neat. And then it becomes such a different building. So they obviously expanded.
And it almost looks like they aren't windows because it looks like she's leaning
Yeah.
halfway out.
Yeah, it's just wide open.
Air, right?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah. Huh.
Yeah, you're right.
I never really thought about that before. They could use that open space right now because they're trying to have their little bar right at that
Yeah.
the size of that table
Yeah,
in front.
they're not very good at social distancing over there.
No, no. And
So-
loads of cigarettes on the street. Oh my gosh, it's like an accident.
So nobody who's on this call remembers it looking like this because you're all too young. Everybody's probably too young to remember it looking like this. Okay, I'm just curious. Just trying to figure that out. Cool.
But I
Well, this
remember
was worth doing. There's a lot of homework to do.
Yes, there's a lot of homework to do. And I'm really curious about the trolley tracks now. So I gotta go back and figure that stuff out.
Well, now we at least know from Dan, thank you, that it was a single track.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a two-way track on one track.
Yeah, I
And
think
then it must have split at the top of Franklin Street as it turned onto Washington Street.
was it two going there? I know there was double track at the townhouse, probably so they could pull over and let other ones by there. It was double track in front of the depot, but I think it was single track the rest of the way.
On Washington Street even? I'll ask Betty.
I-
She's not weeding anymore. It got too hot.
Yeah, I think
can't
so. I mean,
ask
there's pictures. I've got pictures of,
Okay.
I think of most of those roads when the tracks, and I only remember seeing single tracks on those, but.
You know, there are a couple of houses on Washington Street, in the section of Washington Street where the Old North Church is. And some of the houses are old. They have recessed stairs. And Betty said that was because when the tracks were laid, the stairs had extended into the street, as you would expect. But when the tracks were installed, the stairs were recessed into those houses to keep a sidewalk available because of the trolley tracks. Now, it could have been because of the street also, but I think that's pretty interesting. And she used to actually tell the story of a man who was blind, and he would walk down Washington Street and then make an about, a 90-degree turn to go around a set of stairs. And when those set of stairs disappeared, he continued to do that right at that spot because, of course, he couldn't see that the stairs were gone, and he just was a force of habit for him.
Yeah.
But I think we should kind of document that somehow.
Definitely.
Maybe if I finally get my website going, I can have stuff like that. It'll be about the built environment. So
I think that road was built up quite a bit too, because if you look at some old pictures and like kind of from where the bus stop and the Mormino building, there was like 3 or 4 steps going up into those now that there's only 1 or 2 steps to get in them.
yeah, probably.
Does anybody have anything else they want to share that we
I used
haven't
to
touched
go
on?
the Warwick lunch. Anyone remember that? It's next to the Riptide. I don't know what's in there now. The Japanese restaurant's still there or something. Where
Is it the
Super Sub
Japanese
was.
Genu?
Yeah, in there was the Warwick lunch. I remember my grandmother used to take us there and get lunch and dessert. But
And the Riptide has a corner entrance also,
yeah,
Yes.
just for the record. Maybe we should all have a meeting in the Riptide when we can all get together and see what it's like in there.
I know.
I have lots of stories about the Riptide, but I can't tell any of them.
Okay, those are oral history stories that are really important, Dan.
Yes, but I have to be able to beep them out, I think, maybe. I don't know.
I think that's
Well, there's different owners now. Nobody would get in trouble, but
Okay.
I think I was 16 when I had my first beer in there. And the drinking age was 21. And my younger brother was with me.
Oh, jeez.
Somewhere else we weren't allowed to go.
Well,
Girl.
weren't you not allowed to go to the King's Rook either when it was a coffee house in the 50s?
We used to go, because I was younger, I used to go with my cousin, would go down to King's Rook, and they had checkers and chess boards. So we'd go in there and split one drink and sit in there all afternoon. They never bothered us. We'd split a drink and just play checkers and chess all afternoon.
We went in the 60s, not the 50s, in the 60s when it became a kind of a hippie.
Yeah, it was a hippie
Yeah.
place in the 60s, but in the 50s it was a coffee house. And one of the Lee Mansion guides, who has passed away now, I think, but she would have been in her 90s now, she said that her daughter would go there and hang out, but she was not allowed to go there and hang out in the 50s. So the guide, who was this woman's mother, I mean, the daughter who would hang out, the mother would dress up and in a wig and so forth, and go in there to see if her daughter was there. So apparently in the 50s it was,
Because women
not a
weren't
place
allowed.
where young women could go suitably.
Hippies. They weren't hippies, they were beatniks.
Beatniks, exactly.
That was
So that was
before
the
my
previous
time,
generation.
so-
Were
It
there
was okay
any?
by the 60s.
Were there any lunch counters in town like we used to have? I mean,
Yes.
even when I was a kid, Woolworths in my town, you could go and
Yes.
sit at the lunch counter.
But
Yeah,
the
well,
stores,
One next
Eaton,
to Hector's
Eaton's
Pub.
the drugstores had lunch counters, and then George's is where the fishermen had lunch. I don't know if people
Is that the
remember.
one next to Hector's Pub? There was one. I think that was George's. Maybe.
That was
Yeah,
George's,
that
yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a
Across the
famous
street.
one.
Was Peter's.
Oh yeah, Peter.
more of the sandwich shop. Was that a lunch counter too earlier on?
Lunch counter there.
There was a somebody's lunch that I've seen ads for, and I think it was on Washington Street. But I'd have to look at some of those booklets.
Where was George's?
Next to Hector's Pub,
Okay,
the toy store.
got it.
Long, thin, narrow establishment.
And it had a tin ceiling, one of those embossed molded tin ceilings.
Are
And
there any
linoleum
pictures of
floor.
George's?
What?
Are there any pictures of George's anyplace? Has anybody seen any?
Probably not. It wasn't very historic.
I don't know what was there in the
Dive.
I have some parade pictures in the 1950s, but I don't think it was George's then, because that family was asking me if I had pictures, but I can't think of what it was after that, but I do have a few pictures.
What about ice cream bars and stuff too, like places to go get ice cream Sunday or something?
The Driftwood in that era was an ice cream bar.
Oh,
Was it really?
They had one across the street for a short period, and then they had the side window on their existing
that was
location.
later.
But they had the across the street. In fact, I was in there beginning of July, and Colleen said she found a sign upstairs, and it said Dairy Whip, and she was wondering where that sign might have been. Well, I found a picture of the one across the street with that sign hanging in front of it, so she kind of figured out where the sign came from. But for a short period, they had one across the street. So, the Driftwood started in 1960 as Duff's Driftwood, and then they had the ice cream place across the street for a short period.
Well,
That's
and
right.
there was another ice cream spot, it's right on the corner of State and Front, right across from the landing. That was an ice cream spot for a while.
Nancy's Incredible Edibles was in there. I think it had a couple of different names, but it was, it was Nancy's for a while.
That still screams of an ice cream. That needs to be an ice cream store.
Yeah.
Do any of you remember going? I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's in a house. There's a historic plaque on it. It's like Aunt Sadie's or something.
Sadie's Fudge, the candy
Fudge.
store.
Yeah. Was that open when you guys were kids? And
I never remember going inside. You just go, I would go to the door, a little side door. I remember going up there and just knocking on the door, and you give her a nickel and get a big bag of fudge.
Where was Sadie's? Aunt Sadie's.
It's that yellow house.
On Dolliver's Cove.
Is that Beacon Street? I don't know, the streets kind of change around it. That's actually on Beacon Street.
It's right at the intersection, right past the intersection toward the tip of the peninsula, where Norman Street becomes Beacon Street, and where Beacon Street comes in and turns to become Beacon Street, and then you have the house right opposite Dolliver's Cove.
Lauren, I think people were talking about Sadie's when you had one of the earlier of these segments on beaches. They would talk about going to the beaches and then stopping. That rings a bell.
Yes,
Stopping
right.
Oh, Grace Oliver's Beach. And then stopping at the edge.
From Grace Oliver's, you just run right across the street to Sadie's from there.
Right.
Around the corner, yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. This is it was a small but mighty group, and we had a really great conversation, and we have a lot of homework to do, as Judy said, that's for sure, to check on some of this stuff. I just realized I just went on our website to see what next month's was going to be. It was originally going to be our Marblehead Memories Roadshow, which involved bringing in artifacts, things to be scanned and such. And obviously with COVID, I don't know that we're going to be able to do that. So I'll come up with a theme. If you have any thoughts, shoot them out either now or send me an email.
We could show you artifacts.
True. I'd love to capture them though, if you all are willing to do that. I wonder, do I have, I don't have a great race on here yet, and maybe we should do a great race memories, because there's so many good stories that came out of that. So maybe why don't we do that? So it's the first Saturday in September at 10 a.m. It's not late. I don't believe it's Labor Day weekend, and I know kids aren't back to school, I guess, for an extra 2 weeks this year because of all the craziness. So maybe
Lauren, I think Labor Day is late this year, but I think September 1st is Tuesday, because September 1st is Tuesday. That's a voting primary day. So that might still be Labor Day weekend, actually.
Oh dear, so let me look. Hold on one second. Is it Labor Day weekend, the 5th? Oh crap, it is. All right, well, I'll figure something out.
Do we have to wear
I would love to have an awesome conversation.
Do we have to wear our Great Race shirts?
If you have them, yeah.
If I wear mine, I won't be talking or breathing.
All right, well, maybe just hold it up at one point.
One other topic that might be a good one. I've wanted to do this for years, from way back when I was living there. I feel like I was living there when I was working there at the museum. Was to get a lot of people, I think, Dan, from your generation together, who grew up here, who went to high school here, who went to the parties, and you were teenagers in the 60s, especially the late 60s into the 70s, high school and college age, which was such an incredibly formative and transformative time for our country, and a lot of angst, of course, which is sort of similar to what we're going through now. But if everybody could sort of maybe have a little bit to drink ahead of time, just to loosen the tongues. And I think that's a really important memory of what Marblehead was like in the late 60s, early 70s, or even early 60s. In that socially transitional time, we don't have much material at all about that time. And it was an important time, I think. And before, people forget, I think that's an important time to have a memory for.
Yes, that's a great idea. I don't know if we want to encourage 10 a.m. drinking, but I'm just kidding. But yes, and we don't have to do it at 10 a.m. either.
Yeah, 10:15 works.
Okay, we'll do 10:15.
Marblehead after hours.
And I'll just live on the mute button, obviously, because we will be live streaming, so that would be bad. But no, yeah, it really is a great idea. That's such a amazingly important time in our country and our community. So I want to thank you all, and I hope you join us on the 18th for the book club and the 20th for Judy's talk. We're looking forward to both of those. You can learn more on our website, and our tag sale on the 22nd of August. So thank you all very much, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Nice to see you all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.